today's episode, we're going to be talking about flight plans and what we can learn from flight plans regarding our life plans and also our business plans. My name is Fabrizio Poli. Welcome to Quantum Action. This podcast is all about taking your life to infinity and beyond. So let's get into the meat of today's episode. Now, as some of you know, I'm an airline pilot. I flew private jets as well, and there's a lot of lessons that you learn by flying aircraft. And one of the things I'd like to talk about today is flight plans and what we can learn from these flight plans. Now, when you turn up in the morning before a flight, the pilots are given a stack of paperwork, which they have to go through to make a number of decisions before they actually take the airplane into the air. Now, you're given the weather, you're given the passenger load or the payload, because it includes the bags and any cargo that you may have. You then have to check the aircraft status, seeing if there's anything that's inoperational, or maybe some work has been done on the aircraft. That needs to be checked. You also do a walk around of the airplane, make sure everything's okay. You also check what's called NOTAMs, or Notice to Airmen, and that's things like, for example, if there's a taxiway that's shut on the departure airport, it will tell you in the NOTAM the taxiway is shut. If the runway has been shortened at your destination for some reason, because there's some work going on at some stage, or there's a hole in the runway, you'll find that there. If there's one of the, and there's lots of information that you get in the NOTAMs. I don't want to bore you with that. So let's get into the weather, which is one of the first things that you look at. Now, when you look at the weather, you're looking at the weather at your departure airport. And you're looking for the wind, you're looking at, the temperature, which is going to have an effect on performance. And that, if there's any thunderstorms that could cause, microbursts or wind shear or that kind of thing. You also check the weather en route, and you also check your weather at your destination, and then also at your two alternate aerodromes. And this is really, really important. You have to have what's called a meteorological alternate and also a technical alternate. Because if something goes wrong at your destination, you have to have enough fuel to be able to fly to one of these alternates. And that's really, really important to bear in mind. You then look at your payload, passengers, cargo, bags, because that will help you to determine how much fuel you're going to decide to take. So you look at the payload, obviously higher payload, more fuel. That's the way it works. And of course, if the weather's really bad en route to your destination, you want to carry a bit more fuel in case you have to divert. So that's important. You check the NOTAMs, see if there's anything wrong with runways or lights or anything en route, any special airspace that's been erected, because the President of the United States is flying, or the Queen of England. Around the Queen of England, they always create what's called a purple airspace, which is special airspace around the Queen's aeroplane. And so that kind of thing will be inside the NOTAMs. And then, of course, you decide your fuel, and you go out to the airplane. You do a walk around. One pilot does the walk around and checks if fuel is done properly, and the other pilot usually programs the computer. Now, the important thing when you're doing a flight plan is obviously to have a plan, okay? And you have to have enough fuel to get to your destination, but you also have to make a decision at some point. If you're coming into an airport, and this has happened a number of times to me, where the weather's bad and you try one approach, doesn't work, second approach doesn't work. At that point, you will look at, and if you have your minimum diversion fuel, that's the fuel at which you have to divert. And it's the same with the business in your life. You have to have a goal, which is, and the goal is, I want to fly from here to there. Then you have to have a plan to get there. But then there's things that are going to affect how you actually get there, or if you ever do get there, like weather, for example, payload, fuel. Have you chosen enough fuel? So, for example, if you're starting a business, fuel will probably be, how much money do I need to start this business? Have I got alternate money for, plan B, plan C kind of thing to execute and get your passengers from A to B? Because even if you do land at the alternate airport, there will be a bus or train that takes the passengers to the original planned destination. So in a business, you need to have enough capital in order to be able to do this, like fuel on an airplane. Okay, you don't want to run out of money, you don't want to run out of fuel. So that's really, really important. And then you have to have your minimum diversion fuel, where you say, okay, this is the plan to land here, and if suddenly, and you need to set that in stone, say, okay, by this day, if we don't have the money we need, or we don't achieve this goal, then we're going to do this other thing. And you execute your what you call your go around, and you go to your alternate airfield. But also in all this, you've also got to check the weather. So you've got to see what the market's doing. This is really, really important. The economy. If you're launching a business which is linked to a geography. Let's say, for example, you're cleaning cars or you're cleaning driveways or something like that, or you're a plumber. Obviously, if you're a plumber in London, you're not going to pick up a customer in Los Angeles. But if you have an online business, then your customers could be anywhere in the world. So you have to sort of check the weather, see what's going on, the stuff that could potentially affect your business. Or let's say you've set a goal to learn to play the piano, and you want to perform in a concert in a year's time. What do you need to do to get there? What type of lessons, what type of teacher do you need? How long do you have to practice for? What time of day are you going to practice, or evening? All these kind of things you need to factor in. So it's really, really important to have a plan. As I always say, if you have a dream and you don't have a plan, then it remains a dream. In order for the dream to become a goal, you need to have a plan. And the way to do that is to go and look and talk to people that have already achieved what you want to achieve and see how they got there. And, there'll be people, one person would have followed one route, another would have followed another. So, speak to as many people as you can, or read about them, or watch YouTube videos and find out how they achieved the goal that you want to achieve, and find out how they actually got there. What was their flight plan? Okay, so what routing did they go down in order to get there? How much fuel did they carry? And how much capital did they have? What people did they have with them? What the crew? Okay, the crew is important. So your team. What team did these people have? What type of team did they have? These are all things, and it's the same on an airplane. You've got a captain, you've got a co-pilot, you've got an engineer which fixes the airplane, you've got the flight attendants, maybe 3 or 4 flight attendants, sometimes even more. You have to understand, the team. But also in the case of an airplane, there's also a marketing team, a sales team that gets passengers to the airplane that pay for the flight or the cargo on the plane. So these are all aspects as well that need to be considered when you're planning a business, or you've just set yourself a personal goal. Maybe you're a student and you decided that you want to become a doctor or an architect, and so you say, okay, to become a doctor and architect, I have to go to university. Which university should I go to? And so you start your process, you start your planning your flight. Okay, so you gather the data, you get your flight plan made up, and it's really, really important to develop that. Then you've got to have enough fuel. In the case of you're going to study, you need to figure out what you're going to need to be able to study, and in order to be able to achieve that goal. So these are kind of the things that you need to do in order for your flight plan, life plan, business plan to be a successful plan. Because when you take off on an airplane, things never do go according to plan. There's always a bit of wind, or something happens, or you get to the other end and there's a bit of traffic and you have to go in the holding pattern and wait. So there's always stuff that happens along the way, and that's why it's important to be able to think on your feet, because this is really, really key in being able to execute the flight plan, get to your destination. That's ultimately what the goal is. You may be flying along and then suddenly you can get a shortcut. So that's happened to me many times. So you take a shortcut and you get in 10 minutes early. I mean, that can happen. Usually with businesses, you don't get shortcuts and get in early. Most of the time, your execution is later than what you actually plan. But sometimes it does happen, especially today in the world of technology. And that, I'm sure that the guys that created Instagram, that sold, I think it was just over a year after they had set the company up, with just 13 people working for the company, they sold it for $1 billion to Facebook. I'm sure that when those guys started, they didn't think in a million years that they'd be selling the company for $1 billion just over a year after setting the company up. So I mean, sometimes these kind of pleasant surprises do happen, but you just have to have some sort of plan and then execute the plan and have the right team to be able to execute it. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Quantum Action. You can also check my other channel, BizJet TV, about private aviation, if that's something that interests you, or you're thinking of buying an airplane or getting an airplane as a business tool. Or otherwise, you can check this other video about goals, why you shouldn't be setting a goal. Check this video out here on Quantum Action. And remember, we're here to help you to take your life to infinity and beyond. See you on the next one.